Welcome back into day 3 of the 2024 Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. I'm your host, Michaela Chester. If you missed us the past couple of days, I'm going to give you a quick breakdown. We've been tracking brackets closely for 10 years now at NCAA.com and TNT Sports. So we started on Monday and Tuesday. We're going to continue breaking down this year's March Madness bracket with a lot of other fun stuff. And as more people fill out their brackets, we'll have more information with what the majority of people are picking in their brackets. If you have not yet filled out your bracket, make sure you scan the QR code that we're going to have on the left side of the screen throughout the show. So here's the bracket. UConn's the #1 overall seed with Houston, UNC, and Purdue as the other 3 1 seeds. We're also seeing #4 Kansas drop in pick popularity. We'll have more on that in a moment. Let's take a look at the schedule though first. The Final Four was yesterday. Colorado State and Wagner advanced, and that continues today. The winners of those games enter the 64-team bracket. The first round is Thursday and Friday with 16 games per day. Second round is Saturday and Sunday. The second weekend will be the Sweet 16 and Elite 8 before we head to Arizona for the Final Four. And lastly, before we dive in, let's take a look at the guests that we're going to have on today's show. We'll have Caitlin Collins, anchor of The Source on CNN. She'll show us her bracket. Autumn Johnson will be with us, our women's basketball host and reporter. Sharif Muhammad and CJ Schaefer, our March Madness social leads. Andy Katz, our lead men's basketball reporter at NCAA.com. And our lead bracket reporter at NCAA.com and TNT Sports is Wayne Stats. He's been with us, giving us the inside scoop on data coming in on this year's brackets that we all have been filling out. Wayne, obviously not a ton of upsets, but clearly we do have some changes today with the Kansas injury news. Can you give us an update?
Yes, let's go. Let's get right to it. Yeah, you hit it right on the head, Michaela. The big news, of course, is Kevin McCullough, who's the leading scorer for KU, is out for the tournament. You can see right now that's kind of big news of the day in terms of seeing the changes on the percentage lines. So first round, down 3 percentage points since Sunday. So that's, since Sunday night. So you can see it's actually dropped a little bit each day until last night when head coach Bill Self announced that Kevin McCullough Jr. will be out for the tournament. So you can see still almost 75% of our bracket challenge game brackets do have Kansas advancing against Samford. You can see that right here that, of course, logically, that means Samford gets up 3 percentage points with that news. So they creeped up a little bit there. They're still our top 13 seed. They already were that before, but now they're definitely kind of increasing their margin there up there on the top 13 seed line. But here's the thing that I think really stands out even more than just the first round. It's effective what it does further in the ballot down the bracket. So you can see here that Gonzaga has increased by a lot. So you can see hypothetically, if it was a 4 versus 5, it would be #4 Kansas, #5 Gonzaga in the second round. So you see going on Sunday, Kansas was picked by not a huge margin, but more consistently than Gonzaga was in that potential matchup if they got there, or advancing out of that potential matchup, whether it was Kansas, Gonzaga, Kansas, McNeese, whatever. So you can see that Kansas has dropped over 8%. So the reason why they're not matching, of course, is you could have someone else winning besides Gonzaga and Kansas that matchup. But those are the 2 big ones that people kind of anticipate being the showdown in the second round. So Gonzaga is the clear benefactor here with the news with McCullough Jr. out, of course, but you can also argue that Samford is as well, and McNeese. So that's kind of interesting to see how that could potentially go down the road as well. But yeah, those are the big ones here. This is for the percentage of brackets that have teams advancing to the Sweet 16. So still 36.77% of brackets do have Kansas advancing to the Sweet 16, but that's, way down from what we saw late Sunday night when it was almost 45%. That's a huge difference. When you see a lot of people fill out their brackets almost immediately when brackets are out, they're so excited they want to get in right away. So that tells you that even after people complete their brackets, either they're changing their picks or people are, as get more information or more comfortable or more confident in their picks through going in and locking in, or semi-locking in because brackets don't lock till Thursday. But you can see here right now in real time how that news has really kind of switched a lot in the last few days, especially when you look at just what it was yesterday. You can see Kansas has dropped 3 percentage points just since yesterday for the Sweet 16. Again, out of 100, doesn't seem like a lot percent, but that's still a noticeable decrease considering the news there, which is kind of interesting. Do you want to see how it affects the title percentage picks, Michaela?
Yes. And then I've got a question for you in the comments too. And for those
Oh
watching,
yeah.
feel free to leave questions in the comments and we'll try to get to them throughout the segment. But let's see how it affects the championship, and then I'll get to that question.
Yeah, so funny enough, Kansas hasn't dropped too much. You can see it dropped a little bit since yesterday, but 0.11 percentage points out of 1.39 is not insignificant. But I think what this also tells you too is the Kansas fans who are picking Kansas, they're loyal, they're not going to drop it. It's probably the more the non-allied fans of KU or Gonzaga or McNeese or Sanford are the ones changing their picks here. So once people who pick Kansas are they're sticking with them still. So they're still
Yeah.
kind of doing okay on the 4 line. I mean, ahead of Alabama. But you can see the top line as we saw, continue to see. UConn is a champion on almost 26% of our men's bracket challenge game brackets. Still a huge margin over Houston, North Carolina. Houston, we saw leapfrog UNC yesterday to become the second most popular pick. They still are. They actually increased their lead a little bit. But again, we're still talking, not huge numbers here. But Houston's getting a little more popular in terms of, being most picked to win a championship. The one flip we did see was Arizona. Arizona today, when I last checked, they flipped back the other way because you can see how close this is. Arizona leapfrogged Kentucky to become kind of the fifth most picked champion this year at almost 6.5% of brackets have Arizona winning the championship. So Kentucky was ahead of all the twos yesterday. Today they have to settle with being ahead of only 3 of the 2 seeds. So still pretty good for a 3 seed for Kentucky. So again, this isn't Kentucky, getting less popular. Look how similar they were compared to yesterday. It's Arizona getting a
Yeah.
slight increase this, today. So again, nothing too dramatic, but anytime you see, teams flip in the order, especially this high, you kind of wonder what the, what the news was there. So again, they were close the whole way through, but you can see Arizona's increased a lot of support since Sunday. Plus nature being the 2 seed, people default to picking the higher seeds. So again, nothing crazy, but just always interesting to see when teams kind of flip places like that.
Yeah. Maybe people feeling a little brave early and then being like, I'm going to go with the two
Yeah,
seed.
yeah,
Well,
I'm
here's
guilty
a
of
question
that.
from Jordan who asks about Utah State versus TCU. He said, what are the fans picking on that game, Wayne?
Yeah, that's a good one. So you could see right here of the 8 9s. So TCU is getting picked at almost 57% of our brackets. Utah State, of course, then it was 43.05. So pretty close for an 8 9. We kind of saw this yesterday. The same thing as today. Our 3 closest games are actually still 6-11 games, not 8-9, not 7-10s. So we saw this is still the case again that we saw yesterday. South Carolina, Oregon is even closer than it was yesterday. Not
Yeah.
49 to 0.5 to 50.5, but still pretty close. But still, you can see here that Utah State is for an 8 seed is getting picked a little right than TCU, which is unusual. 9 seeds do have a winning record against 8 seeds in the first round since expansion. But again, 8-9, we're talking like very, very close, margins here. So that's how we are right now. You can see TCU is still pretty popular. And again, back to that 6-11, Oregon is the 4th highest upset pick ever that we've seen. The only teams higher than them were picked above 50%. So Oregon is very, very, very popular. Not that NC State and Mexico aren't either, but I think we're seeing again, as we saw yesterday, teams that won a lot of games in a few days to win conference tournaments are getting picked a lot by our bracket challenge players.
Which makes sense. All right. Another question. CSBA Highlights asks, what about Charleston as a Cinderella team? We didn't cover the Cinderellas in depth today, so let's get into that. They want to know about Charleston.
Yeah, so here's Charleston. You could see their second most pick 13 seed, but you can see, look at that difference though. I mean, they're about like half of what Sanford is. Now, some of that, as we talked about, is probably due to the injuries that Kansas had. Even before yesterday's news about McCullough, there were still questions about how healthy KU was in general. But Charleston is a team. They were very popular upset pick last year as a 12 seed, couldn't get it done, but they're back this year, so they do have a chance to get it done. So you could see a 12.8%, which isn't bad, considering for a 13 seed. And let's see where I can find Alabama, of course, 87.2 up there up top. So again, that still tells you that that's still pretty popular for 12. Again, 13% of brackets picking a 13 seed. That's not bad. I think sometimes you can
Yeah.
get thrown out with 100% being confident, but almost 50% is good. It's just not close to what people think about Sanford. But again, as we saw last year, FDU was one of the least picked teams, even on the 16 seed line, and won. So much as we like to think that we all know the answers to everything, sometimes we clearly don't know. But Charleston definitely has a chance for a 13 seed upset. We can see if they can get it done though.
All right, another question. This one from Joe Maxwell. And Stats, I think you're going to like this question. Is St. Mary's being undervalued? An Alabama matchup would be really fun and close.
I think so. I really think so too. I think St. Mary's is one of the team where they could have been, a seed or two higher, depending how things went there. You can see here that St. Mary's is getting picked a little lower than their conference rival Gonzaga in the Sweet 16. But again, some of that probably because of the Stanford news as well. Yeah, I think St. Mary's, they're a team that seems to make it every year. They kind of make teams play to their style, which is always frustrating, I'm sure, for opponents. And so I think St. Mary's seems like a team that if they made a Sweet 16 run or a late 8 run, wouldn't be too shocking to see, especially if the bracket breaks right. You can see here on the 5 seed line, they are the second most popular 5 seed to make the Sweet 16 by 10% over San Diego State, a team that made the title game last year. So, they're still pretty popular. You could see St. Mary's. Yeah, the Gales are always a tough out for sure, especially when they probably could have been even a little higher seed. So, 5 seed, it seems like, they could get the job done.
Well, Stats, any other things you want to point out before we move on?
Yeah, just a couple. So I know we mentioned yesterday kind of how we were the 15 and 16s. Before 2018, I think it would have been easy to just kind of overlook how people were picking those games. Now I feel like that's what you have to talk about. So I have to mention the 15 and 16s. So again, Western Kentucky, even again, not big difference, but more popular than yesterday. So they remain the most picked 15 seed we've seen since we've been tracking these brackets since 2014. So, going back a decade, that's a pretty good number here. Again, 8% or 8.23% of our brackets have Western Kentucky advancing. That's pretty good. And then, St. Peter's dropped a little bit from yesterday, but still one of the highest we've seen on the 15 seed line. I'm sure it's a name people remember from a few years ago. So they're still pretty popular picked. And Longwood moved up against since yesterday. They are our most picked 16 ever. I think everyone wants to get on that bandwagon now before it happens again. Yeah. So we'll see if they can get it done. But I think, I'm kind of curious if all ones win this year. I wonder if we'll see numbers drop a little bit next year, that people are just remembering last year's upset and thinking it's going to be more of a pattern. I mean, it has been more a pattern than it was pre-2018 for sure, but we can see if that changes if the 1 seeds dominate. But shout out to Wagner. They're the lowest picked team, but they just won yesterday, so maybe their fans are a little sleepy and they'll fill in their brackets before brackets lock tomorrow. So shout out to Wagner and Colorado State for getting the job done yesterday and winning on the first 4 in Dayton. So congratulations. We'll see you guys tomorrow in their games. So we see if they can get the job done.
Any idea or just inkling as to why Longwood is the most popular 16?
I'm not really sure. I think part of the reason is just the matchups. I think Stetson could have been a popular one. They just happened to play the team that everyone thinks is the dominant force in basketball this year. So I think that, yeah, exactly. So I think it might be part of it. But yeah, so the Longwood thing is kind of interesting to me, especially when you would think, Houston, was,
right.
One of the most popular teams. I think this is just maybe it's just the margin sometimes. Again, we're not talking huge percentages here, so I think it's just maybe a little just kind of fun number stuff here. Because you think you probably wouldn't Purdue, knowing how we think about Purdue, the struggles they had and getting upset the previous years. But maybe we'll see tomorrow, once we know where things land on their opponent, maybe that'll change a little bit. But I think that's kind of interesting to see. Maybe once we know who the winner of the playing game is tonight, maybe we'll see kind of reshuffling there a little bit. So don't remember to if you picking a team based off the first 4 result and the other team won, you still have time to change it, or you can leave it as is. You'll get credit for it. Of course, UCLA made the Final Four from first 4 a few years back, so you get credit for that. Whether you thought it'd be them or Michigan State winning that game, you get points for it. So don't worry.
And our McNeese, NC State. They still big picks to go far into the tournament, Sweet 16.
Yep. Yeah. So you can see here, New Mexico is still our top double-digit seed pick at almost 20%. Yeah, which is again 20% for an 11 seed. That's really, really high. Part of that's because a lot of people like them against Clemson. I think they can get the job done. Again, another team that looked great in their conference tournament, got the job done. We'll see if they can do it again. But yeah, if you want to go Cinderella all the way to Cinderella, the true Cinderella of winning it all, it's still McNeese, Down a little bit since we saw that peak at 1%, but still 0.91 is still very high for a 12 seed going all the way. So all those McNeese fans are sticking with them. Once they pick them once, they're picking them 5 more times, which is pretty cool.
Love it. Well, that's our men's bracket returns. For those of you who have yet to fill out your brackets, here's a how-to video. And when we return, we'll take a look at the women's side.
Welcome to the Capital One NCAA March Madness Men's Bracket Challenge, the best way to play brackets. When the NCAA tournament field is announced on Selection Sunday, brackets will open, and you get to pick who you think will win every one of the 63 tournament games. Feeling lucky? Choose the winners of each game yourself to fill out your bracket. If you need more help, use the NCAA's AutoPick tool, Matchup Analysis, which analyzes years of data to give you an edge. Use our preset stats and get a completed bracket in just a few clicks. Or you can choose from up to 20 different basketball stats to create your own custom criteria. Think defense wins championships? Crank up steals and defensive efficiency. Then click Calculate and let the numbers show you who to pick. Once you have your bracket, it's time to join a group, play with friends, compete against celebrities, or even choose your favorite school's official group. When the first round of the tournament starts, your picks are locked in, and it's time to sit back and root for the perfect bracket. Watch games in the March Madness Live app, and you'll see pick icons in every matchup to tell you who you picked, and a group view to see what your friends chose. Starting in the Sweet 16, find out exactly what needs to happen for you to win your group. The Path to the Championship tool will break down every game and show your bracket's best case scenario. Finish in the top 1% of the leaderboard, and you'll be entered to win this year's grand prize, a trip for 2 to next year's Final Four. Get ready to play the NCAA March Madness Men's Bracket Challenge.
Welcome back in, and we are joined by Autumn Johnson now, the NCAA women's basketball host and reporter. Autumn, we want to get to know you a little bit and tell everybody watching who you are and what you do. So can you tell us a little bit about yourself, where your love for basketball started, and how you got into reporting?
Yeah, thanks for having me, you all. I'm very excited to be here. As you mentioned, Autumn Johnson, digital host for March Madness Women's Basketball. This is my 4th season now covering all things women's basketball, whether that's bracketology, rankings, players to watch, game recaps, you name it. But my favorite thing of all of everything that I do is getting to share the athletes and coaches' stories, playing the game, watching the game growing up. It's always surreal to be in these moments and be right there on the sidelines covering these type of games at this caliber. Because, my brother, he took me along the ride every single, time we went outside. That's what we were doing. We were playing hard. On that concrete, like getting after it. I was always playing with the guys. So, just to be that little girl to be in these moments now is really cool, and meet stars of today and tell their stories. I take a lot of pride in that, and excited to now get into another March Madness. This is my first one, and a fun fact, my first one ever covering it as a media member for NCAA was during the pandemic. So I was in the bubble right there, and it was very cool to see Stanford take it all the way. And now we're going to see who gets it in Cleveland.
Well, tell us a little bit more about your actual role now. This is how you got into it. And you mentioned, you do the Power 10 rankings, bracketology, but dig into it a little bit more, what you do.
Yeah, so weekly, from start to finish, even during the preseason, to we crown a champion, I am right there covering all things women's college basketball. During the preseason, we do our college road trip, mainly getting personality pieces and social content to show who these players and coaches are and tell their stories in that fashion. And I think that's a really cool element because, yes, we see the stars that they are on the court, but who are they as people off the court, especially in this landscape where it's like about who they are and their brands and getting to showcase, their personalities and, what they love or their upbringing, their background, you name it. During the actual season, as you mentioned, I'm doing my power rankings. That's looking at games closely. That's having multiple screens up, whether that's my iPad, HDMI cord hooked up to pretty much everything, trying to get multiple games up to make sure that I'm staying up to date on all teams. Because during all of this, I'm currently every single, month updating my bracket for my latest bracket prediction. So I have to know even those mid-major schools that are making some noise and looking to make their stamp in March. So it's constantly watching games, it's constantly seeing who's the hottest team and who's on the rise. So a lot of basketball at all times, every single day to create my rankings and to educate our women's basketball fans out there on everything that they need to know about women's college basketball.
Well, Autumn, could you touch a little bit on the state of the game, the growing popularity, the increased parity, just how much it's grown and where we're at now with women's basketball?
Yeah, I mean, it's exciting. And I always feel like women's college basketball has always been exciting, right? It's always been competitive. It's been fun to watch. But you look at the stars that we used to have or still have, Candace Parker, Cheryl Swoops, Diana Taurasi. Like I can go on and on about the pillars of women's college basketball that we've had. But I feel like the stars of today's game have completely changed the landscape. I mean, you even look at a player like Caitlin Clark and all that she's doing. She's bringing on those casual basketball fans by the way that she plays and the fashion that she scores, pulling up from the logo. I mean, she has to be guarded whenever she gets off the bus. She has endless range and it's so fun to watch. But people who don't really watch basketball, they know Caitlin Clark. If you bring up women's college basketball, period, they're like, oh, I know Angel Reese. I know Juju Watkins. They can name multiple people, and that's really cool to hear. And it's in demand. I mean, it's not a trend. I don't feel like this moment's going to end because you look at the freshman class and we have more stars coming up. When I mentioned, I mean, a Juju Watkins, a Hannah Hidalgo, Madison Booker. Like I can go on and on about the endless talent, and it's promising. Like it's here. Women's college basketball, our moment is now, and I don't see it fading out anytime soon, but it's very exciting to be a part of.
It is really exciting. Can you tell us your favorite part of March Madness, the actual tournament?
The upsets. I mean, it doesn't get better than that. That's
Yeah.
what it's all about. And it's the thrilling part of it. Those Cinderella stories, teams that get slept on, they make noise in March, those buzzer beating moments, like you name it. This is you win or you go home. So it's one game on the line every single time just to see that competitive nature, these seniors that don't want to go home, those freshmen that want to make noise in the tournament. Everyone buying into a one common goal is always fun for me to watch. And you never know, like even in this tournament, I have my bracket filled out. Who knows if it's going to shake out how I have it? Because the parity across the board is amazing. We don't know exactly, who's going to be in the Final Four when it's all said and done, because it could be anybody's game at any given moment. And it's all about who wants it more. And that's, to me, what makes March exciting.
And speaking of those upsets, what's the most surprised you've ever been watching March Madness?
The most surprised I've been when you look at Cinderella stories, and like I mentioned, I've been covering it for the NCAA for 4 seasons now. So my takes are going to be a little recent. But since I've been covering it, Creighton going to the Sweet 16 was an exciting to see. I think they put the nation on notice that, hey, we're here. They still have, that starting 5, and they can possibly bring them back again next year as 5th-year players. But to see them come in and make noise, taking down teams like Iowa was incredible to watch. But not so much of a sleeper. I think they just got slept on too much was last year at LSU. Like no one expected them to win the national championship game because Kim Mulkey, she just got here 3 seasons ago and she came in. We know who Kim Mulkey is, that championship caliber coach, and what she did at Baylor. But to come in immediately to take a team that, she had to bring on her own recruits, and she brought in the #1 transfer in the country, Angel Reese, and the way she was able to impact the dynamic of that team. They were number 16 in the preseason rankings. And then when they came into the tournament, I believe they were like number 9. The reason they got slept on is because everyone said they had a cupcake schedule. They didn't really play anyone during their non-conference play. So just to see how they took that and played in a tough SEC, which a lot of people really didn't consider, and took it all the way. We all had South Carolina winning that championship game, and how they did it in that fashion was really cool to see LSU kind of make their stamp in women's college basketball last year.
And to think they were slept on last year and won the title. And now a lot of bracket pickers are going with the Tigers. Wayne, can we get an update on how fans are picking in the women's game? Yesterday, an overwhelming majority for South Carolina and Iowa. LSU pretty close there too, but let's get an update.
Yep. Yeah. So you got it exactly right, Michaela. So South Carolina, clearly the number one most picked team. So 38.48% of our brackets have South Carolina winning it all. Kind of, you can see here pretty consistent, since the brackets were out. Iowa dip below 30. It's okay. It's okay, Iowa fans. It's still almost 30%, but still clearly the number two most popular team to win it all. And like you said, LSU again on the 3 line. You could say maybe slept on at only a lower 5%, 5.5%, but still out of all the 2 seeds. So it's kind of a funny thing with LSU is defending national champion, all that talent back, getting picked by only 5.39% of brackets so far, but that's out of all the 2s. So it's not, and 2 of the 1s. So it's not like, people are overlooking them. It's just that as we've seen the last few days, these 2 teams are just so far ahead of everybody else. There's just not much other space like everybody else, in the pie there. But still, LSU is still the 3rd most popular team at almost 5.5%. UConn there, of course, and Texas and USC falling on the 1 seed line. So those are the kind of the stories. Still kind of the same thing that we've been seeing. So not much changing like we've seen. The drastic side on the men with Kevin McCullough's injuries kind of changed things on the men's side, at least in one kind of part of the region. But the women's bracket, at least right now, still pretty consistent with the favorites we've seen so far. But I think it's kind of always good to talk about the upsets. Autumn said how much upsets make her make what March Madness so wonderful for her. And we mentioned yesterday, still kind of the same thing. Middle Tennessee, Green Bay, Florida Gulf Coast, and A&M are the big ones right now. I know we talked about before, Autumn, but I think you and I are on the same page about Florida Gulf Coast. Not that, we have good reason to be. They've won it as a 12 seed the last 2 years. They're the most popular 12 seed again. Again, you can see, maybe listen to us the last few days. They're going up a little bit, so above 27%. So 27% of brackets have Florida Gulf Coast beating Oklahoma in the first round. We'll see if that goes a little higher. Like I said, I'm surprised it's not a little higher because that's a name that people know as an upset potential team the last 2 years of the 12 seed line. Again, not that 27% is low, especially on the women's side where there aren't as many upsets. So, maybe I'm kind of expecting things there, but that's still a big number for a 12 seed. But you can see 11 seeds are still the big ones right now. But in terms of the game that's closest and toughest to pick right now, it's Ole Miss Marquette. So you can see, look how close it is between those 2. So that one has been giving people a lot of issues on the 7-10 line. And of course, some more some 8-9s in there as well. Princeton, West Virginia, Michigan State, UNC. That's kind of how it looks right now. Again, nothing changing too dramatically in terms of team really getting picked up a lot compared to yesterday. Things changing on the margin. Fairfield's now above 11% to pull off an upset against Indiana in the first round. Fairfield just has 1 loss on the year, so they maybe, if you want to dig deep and pick a really big upset, maybe start with Fairfield or maybe go with Marshall. Marshall's a top 13 seed right now, and of course, I think the cool thing about the Marshall game is they get Virginia Tech, which should be a fun one there. We'll see if they can get the job done there. So those are kind of the big ones right now. But I'm curious to see if things change a little bit in terms of the margins. If maybe we'll see Simone cut into those big, huge percentages of South Carolina, Iowa. But I think people are pretty locked in on those 2 right now.
Nothing surprising there, Autumn, is there?
Not too much to me. I mean, when you look at FGCU, as stats mentioned, I mean, they were a team who beat North Carolina this year and Kentucky. They're the 7th straight ASUN champs. They're consistently a dominant NCAA tournament team. So when they come in, a lot of people sleep on them, but you shouldn't, because of the threes that they can shoot at a high clip in the offense that, Coach Smezko has been able to curate for his tenure in his coaching career for FGCU, kind of putting them on the map. So that's not too shocking to me. And I look at that matchup for Oklahoma. If they can get that job done, they would possibly face Indiana if it goes chalk. And we still don't know the status of Mackenzie Holmes. So possibly they can go further. So we'll see. And interestingly enough, you mentioned Virginia Tech too, the status of Elizabeth Kitley. We're still not unsure of that. For Marshall to come in, and we know how they like to get shots up constantly. We saw that in the tournament. We're not sure what, how that can fare against just Georgia Amore on that team and the balance that they can have in that matchup whenever you look at Marshall. So I wonder if Elizabeth Kitley is going to be available for this matchup. But those could be two really good sleepers to pick. And the Ole Miss Marquette one, that one got me, but I went with Ole Miss. I'm not betting against Coach Yo and what she was able to do with Stanford to move on. So I'm going to keep that one.
Well, speaking of that, Autumn, we're going to take a look at your 2024 bracket and break it down. While we get it pulled up on the screen here, you already posted it. How's the feedback so far?
Oh man, social media. You gotta love it.
Oh,
You
yeah.
gotta love the comments. But if you're not having conversation around your bracket, what fun is that? But it was interesting to see how a lot of people, went with what I was going with for the Final Four picks. Obviously, not too much heat selecting South Carolina. That's kind of a given
No.
board for everyone. But the funniest comment I read yesterday, someone said, "Girl, you have Tennessee doing too much in your bracket." And I'm like, hold up. I am really high on the Bulls right now. They had to play South Carolina 3 times since February 15th. And I feel like those type of matchups, you're playing the best of the best in the SEC, especially a championship caliber team in South Carolina. You should be prepared for March. You should be prepared for anything. And to take the Gamecocks to the wire the way they did in the semis in the SEC tournament, they almost got that one over South Carolina. The last matchup before that, they lost by single digits. The game before that was only decided by 11 points. They are right there, and I believe it starts and ends with Rickea Jackson in the game that she brings for them, whether that's inside, whether that's outside, you name it. So I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong. We'll see. But I have Tennessee going all the way up to the Elite Eight. So happy March to everyone. We'll see.
Well, take us through some of your other upset picks, maybe on the right side of the bracket. I think you have a little bit more in the top right and bottom right quadrant, but take us through some of those, walk us through your decisions, and then we'll eventually get to the Final Four.
All right, so some upsets in Albany too, which is a gauntlet over there. My goodness, Iowa being the second #1 seed has the toughest route by far. I really feel like if they meet up against Princeton, if it's all said and done, that could be a tough one. Princeton always comes in as a sleeper. They have the top 20 defense in the nation. Caitlin Chin has been incredible for them. In her entire career, she's been with Princeton. But, that offense defense matchup, we'll see how it fares out. Iowa has the #1 offense in the nation, but I feel like Princeton can challenge them. They just have to find a way to slow them down, especially in transition. So we'll see how that goes. Another one that is really like the actual upset alert for me would be possibly UNLV taking down Creighton, which obviously in the beginning I mentioned Creighton being that Cinderella team for previous years, but I really love what UNLV has done. Consistently. And you look at, yes, their regular season, they dropped 2 games, but when it mattered the most, they won as the Mountain West champs. So we'll see how that goes. Desiree Young is a star, and she's consistently a star down low for UNLV. So they'll have to find a way to slow her down. Let's see some other upsets. Portland 3. Ooh, I really like what Auburn has done this season. This is a team that took down LSU during the regular season and shocked the nation. So we'll see if they can continue to shock the nation. They played LSU again in a rematch, and they only lost by single digits. So they held close with them again. So it wasn't a fluke that we saw. But Deasia Fair for Syracuse, it's going to be a tough battle to try to contain her. A lot of people aren't talking about her enough, but she's actually the second active scorer on that all-time NCAA scoring list, right behind Caitlin Clark. So yes, she's going to be a star to watch out for and try to slow her down. I mean, when the game's on the line, she can put up buckets like it's nothing. But I feel like Auburn can get the best of that matchup when you look at that right side for my upsets. Another one, which really isn't much of an upset, but I just want to call this one out, UConn versus Ohio State. A lot of people, when you look at the comments, Michaela, you were talking about, they're like, what are you doing? And I'm like, all right, just watch. We saw it last year.
Calling it.
Yes, but I do understand in that matchup, Paige Beckers wasn't there, and now they'll have her. But I still feel like the Buckeyes, that press, that 1-2-2, 2-2-1 press they constantly run is suffocating. They were at the time the number 2 team in the country before they lost to Iowa. And also they dropped an early one in the Big Ten tournament. I feel like they're going to come in with a chip on their shoulder. And what they've been able to do this season has been incredible. 15-game winning streak. Of course, those 2 losses cut it. But they bring in a lot of talent. And I think it starts with Cody McMahon. She's the X factor for this team.
So Ohio State headed to the Final Four, and LSU making it out of that really tough region with Iowa. Why are you going with the Tigers over Iowa?
Okay, so when I look at the matchup, that's how I picked a lot of these. So yes, you have Caitlin Clark and you have Hannah Stolke down low, but when I think about the talent across the board, I feel like the guard play balances when you look at Haley Vinlith, Flage, Michaela Williams, star-studded guard play for LSU. And then on the other side for Iowa, you have Caitlin Clark, of course, you have Kate Martin, and you have Gabby Marshall. They have been playing outstanding as of late, and that's been the big question mark. When Caitlin Clark is either scoring or not scoring, doesn't matter. She needs her teammates and that balance. But is the supporting cast going to step up? They proved that in the Big Ten tournament, so I trust them more than I did in the beginning of the season to get the job done as a whole this year. But when you look at the post play, you have Hannah Stolke, who's not a true center, but she has been able to shine in that role for Iowa. She's fast, she's quick, she used to run track. She helps Iowa push that pace that they love to run. And then you look on the other side, and there's an Angel Reese, who we all know the talent that she brings on that offensive board. She loves to be, active on the glass. She has a knack for rebounding that's tough to contain. And then you add Anissa Morrow, who a lot of people didn't know her game being on DePaul last year. She's waking everyone up and said, hey, I'm here and I'm here to produce at a high level. And that tandem, that 1-2 tandem down low is going to be tough to contain. So when I look at the matchup across the board, I don't think, Iowa can kind of slow down these 2 down low when it's all said and done. And last year you had Monica Sonano and McKenna Warnock. This year you lose that, and LSU just got better this year. They revamped, they reloaded, and I feel like that's going to be tough to guard.
All right, but still, either way, if we get that matchup, it's going to be really great. Just a rematch of the championship last season. And then you've got South Carolina cutting down nets. Don't need to explain that one too much. You've said it again and again.
No, I mean, the number 1 team from start to finish, a lot of people question them as well, losing a starting 5 and having that next wave of talent, wait for their name to be called. They stepped up and now they're here. They have rose to the occasion and there's been no drop off. So like you mentioned, not too much to go into detail for that. I just love the offense that they've brought this year. They can score in a variety of ways. And if we look up matchups, as I mentioned, across the board, the luxury that Dawn Staley has of, taking out her starting 5 and then reloading, putting in a whole new 5, and they can still keep that pace going in that versatile play. Like who can match up against that?
Autumn, before we move on from your bracket, what was the toughest to pick? What'd you spend the most time on?
Oh, what didn't I spend? So I'm the most I'm the most indecisive person in the world. So this one actually
Me too.
Yes. But honestly, I would say anything in that Albany 2 region in Portland 4. But since we haven't touched on Portland 4 that much, I'll go into that because I just feel like that region's so wide open when it's all said and done. But with Texas and Final 4, I feel like Vic Schaefer, I mean, we saw him go back to back in the Elite 8. They're due for a Final 4 run. That Texas fight, that Texas defense is suffocating. They lost Rory Harmon, but the way Madison Booker has been able to step up as a freshman, I keep on talking about this freshman class. My goodness, they're so good, and the games keep going with them. But the way she's been able to take charge of this team, they've only lost 4 with her. She hasn't shied away from the moment. I feel like they can take it a long way, but they got some tough opponents to go up against if they want to make it to that Final 4.
All right. Well, there's your bracket. Of course, we're 2 people that are super indecisive and we have to make brackets all the time. So that's just great for us. All right, Autumn. I do want to get you to give your bracket tips, though, for fans that want to fill out their bracket on the women's side. It's a lot different than the men's bracket. So if you can give us some tips, we would love it.
Yes, completely different. We saw the most upsets in that 2022 tournament. There were 7 in that. So not a lot of upsets as usual on the men's side, but still great games and close games as well. But when it's hard picking a bracket overall. So I have 5 tips for you. Of
All
course, for my
right.
tip, you have to double up on the 1 seeds. And we've seen history kind of back that up with the number 1 seeds receiving 22 times that championship ring. And for the 2 seeds, they've had it 4 times. So you want to bet on those 1 or 2 seeds for sure. Definitely for the 1 seeds. Obviously, South Carolina has a 1 seed right now, and a lot of people picking them. I'm going with them. So history could repeat itself again. However, anything can happen in March. We saw a 3 seed win it all last year in LSU. So like I mentioned, you can't be wrong if you pick anyone, but I would go with South Carolina if I was you. For my second bracket tip, I would focus on the Elite 8. And my strategy is always picking the 2 strongest out of the region and advancing forward, and then kind of move accordingly, because you're not going to typically see a double-digit seed make it that far. We haven't seen that in history just yet, but someone can shock us this year. We'll see how the path goes for everyone. But you want to make sure that you're picking your 2 strongest to advance into the Elite 8. And then for my third tip, don't get too Cinderella crazy. As I mentioned, there were 7 upsets in that 22 tournament, but that we don't typically see that. Even the following year, we didn't see 7 upsets. So that story typically ends in the Sweet 16. For my fourth tip, look to the number 11 and number 12 seeds, and that's pretty much reflected in my bracket. That I went for some 11 seeds. And when you even look at a Middle Tennessee, who's an 11 seed this year, they can knock some teams out. They knocked off Tennessee during the regular season. You look at Auburn, who I mentioned could come in and make some noise over Syracuse. Green Bay, that offense that they have, they like to shoot the lights out. They could take down Tennessee and Texas A&M. I have Nebraska going over them, but they can't be counted out, especially for the experience they had in the SEC. So I would go more so for the 11 seeds over the 12 seeds, but those are 2 of the upset seeds you want to go against. And then also last year, we even saw how St. John's came in from the first 4, almost took down North Carolina and gave them a scare. And FGCU actually got it done as an 11 seed, taking down number 6, Washington State. So history kind of backs itself up. And for my last tip, just have fun with it, because it's pretty much impossible to have a perfect bracket. And yes, there's tons of history that backs it up, but you got to fill out as much brackets as you can. Just have fun with it. Go with your gut. And as your heart desires, pick whoever you want in the Final Four and as your champion. So the possibilities are endless and the fun is endless. So just go with your gut.
It really is. Autumn, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with the tournament. I know you got a long road ahead of you.
Yes, thank you for having me, and happy March, everyone.
Happy March. All right. Another reminder for everyone to fill out their brackets. The QR code is on the left-hand side. We're going to head to break, and when we're back, we'll have the social report. So we'll see you soon. Welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. Wayne and I are about to be joined again by CJ and Sharif, who are going to bring us the social report. So these two guys are our March Madness social media leads, posting everything you see on March Madness social. Guys, how are we holding up?
Hanging on by a thread, and we haven't even started the first round yet, Michaela. That's how we're holding up.
All right, so let's see what we got going in the social world. Take it away, guys.
Well, so last night, obviously, as everybody knows, you guys have talked about it already. We started with our first two tournament games. Our very first tournament game saw Wagner move on to the first round. It's their first ever tournament win. So excited to see them in the first round for the first time ever.
Yeah, big congrats to Wagner on that huge win, and they saved off it's 20-point comeback it was from Howard. So
it ended up being a very exciting finish. But let's go on to the next slide. Let's see. Colorado State ended up getting a dominating win. Dominating might not even begin to explain what happened last night over Virginia.
Yeah, and I think the biggest talking point of this game is that, especially we saw it from a social perspective, a lot of people didn't think Virginia should have been in the tournament in the first place.
Right.
So the fact that a lot of people were validated in their opinion for them getting pretty much demolished last night was probably pretty satisfying for certain individuals.
Yep. And that is obviously not for us to decide. Just keep in mind, East Carolina could have taken that spot. Let's go to the next slide. Let's put into perspective just how much Colorado State was dominating Virginia last night. 14 points in the first half for Virginia, a suffocating defense from Colorado State last night.
I believe I read they went an hour straight of actual time without scoring a basket.
It got ugly.
That is,
You're kidding.
Yes, that is absolutely unbelievable.
It got ugly. Scrolling through your timeline last night. If you were scrolling through, you know exactly what I'm talking about. It was brutal. It was Virginia this, Virginia that.
Yeah.
Who picked that meme? One of you two.
It was CJ.
It was me.
He was on the keys last
Well
night.
done.
Any memes
Well
you see
done.
tonight will be his. Thank you, Wayne. But of course, let's follow up on some of these celebrity brackets we told you we would have today. We were not done.
right.
As we told you yesterday, we are asking everybody under the sun. I think we're closing in on 400 people that we've asked.
We are far.
We have plenty. We got a number of athletes to respond back to us today. So we have Paulo Banchero right here. Duke legend, obviously has Duke winning the tournament.
Filled out a bracket for us last season.
Yeah, filled out a bracket for us last year. He fills out Duke winning the tournament every year. Not really surprising.
Yes, not really that surprising. I guess
Yeah.
Michigan State over North Carolina would be the biggest one.
Yeah. Again,
Trusting Izzo
not
March.
not all that surprising considering where he went to school.
True.
Yeah.
That's also a very good point.
Yeah, you know he's not going to pick UNC. Come on.
Yeah, I'm surprised he didn't pick him losing in the first round.
Agreed.
That's a good point. Yeah.
We had a Luka Garza bracket and he picked Iowa State losing in the first round.
We
what
did.
Everyone was laughing at.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Let's pop over to the next slide. See Michael Harris of the Atlanta
Ooh.
Braves. For those who don't know, you might be a little surprised to see him pick Texas Tech. He did not play for Texas Tech, but he committed to Texas Tech, ended up foregoing his college career to play for the Braves. But that is why you see Texas Tech as his champion here. Other than that, not too many surprises. Just decided to stay loyal to the team that he would have played for.
Yeah, Duquesne over BYU is not one we're seeing a ton, I don't think.
No,
So
that's
that's
true.
probably the biggest
No,
surprise.
we're not.
Yeah.
I would love to see somebody fill out a bracket by hand and have to spell Duquesne on their own, by the way.
Honestly, I don't think
I couldn't. Don't ask me.
Even if you offered me like $1,000, I don't think I could. So
Forget it.
$1,000 on the line. I'm memorizing how to spell Duquesne. I'm sorry.
no, it's about like right now. I was like on the spot right
Never
now.
mind.
So.
All right, let's go to the last slide. We have one more celebrity bracket. For those
right.
who watch NASCAR, I'm a NASCAR fan. I reached out to Kyle Busch myself. We got it back. Unfortunately, bracket's kind of lame, Kyle. We should stick to the left turns because it's all chalk.
Yeah, a lot of people were kind of hated on this one.
Mhm.
He does have my pick, James Madison over Wisconsin. I must.
All right.
There you go.
I like it.
Remember,
I
for
like
those
it.
Nose ball.
for those who have been following the show for the past few days, That's incorrect. That's not happening.
Oh, okay.
Oh,
What he should have done was
yeah.
pick McNeese to beat Gonzaga. I will hammer that again.
Okay. Yeah. Interesting.
or
Yeah,
both. Why not
CJ
both?
was absolutely solid on that pick.
I'm just making sure, and McKellar, you're gonna get me going again.
What-
I'm just making sure that everybody knows when it happens. Bring it back to me.
What did he say on Monday? He said, "Clip this."
Clip it.
He's that
Yes.
confident.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
I mean,
what
you
did,
guys do run March Madness Social, so if anybody has the capability of doing it, it's you.
Exactly.
McKellar has more faith in me than
Yeah.
you do.
Oh, of course. And I will be clipping it when Gonzaga win.
You don't have to. Somebody did it for you already.
Fair enough. Next
Sharif,
one,
if
next
if
one.
it doesn't go CJ's way, I dare you to just tweet like he was wrong from the March Madness.
March
Yeah.
Madness admin was wrong.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
I love it. Let's do it.
Anyway, let's end it a little more lighthearted on the social report. We have after Selection Sunday, or after the selection show, I should say, we have Andy Katz put together a bunch of lists. Some are serious, like the ones you saw yesterday, such like the top 10 players on double-digit seeds. This one's a little different. We like to have a little fun with Andy too. He made a mascot Final Four. He filled out a bracket, just based on which mascots he liked the best. A little homerism here, picking Bucky Badger there. You can see him on the far right.
Yeah.
But Cosmo the Cougar,
Come on,
Lobo
Andy.
Louie, Oregon Duck.
I think the biggest surprise here is no Sparty.
No
Probably the
Sparty.
most popular
Yeah.
mascot we see consistently.
true.
No Sparty. I think he might have had Sparty there last year.
That's
and
true.
Yeah.
I didn't even
He's
think
too
about that.
scary.
Super surprising.
Sparty's too scary. Yeah.
Also,
Sparty is scary.
over the summer, we had a fan voted mascot bracket. Big J was actually the winner. So, and I believe Sparty was in the final. So, yeah. So these are kind of some surprising picks. I mean, I'm a big Cosmo the Cougar fan. He's a beast. Yeah.
I think
super athletic.
If I remember correctly, I think Big J knocked out Bucky Badger
Yes,
in
he did.
that tournament. So Cats might still be a little upset about
Yeah, he
it.
might be a little salty. Yeah.
Well, speaking of mascots, we had a segment on Monday where Wayne and Wilco broke down how mascots have actually done in the tournament. Super interesting. You guys can head to YouTube to check it out. Stats, how do you think these mascots would do with the actual math?
Yeah, I love this. You know what? These are all, I gotta say, this is a great variety. Give Cats credit. You know, he didn't pick all dogs or all cats. You know, I love the variety here. Yeah, we saw with the mascot bracket, people don't always do so well. So, you know, it's a pro animal bracket on the mascot side. I gotta say, I just love the collection here. I mean, you can't go wrong with the duck. I mean, the duck is just, it's the best. Yeah.
All-time classic mascot.
Always
Definitely.
is.
Yeah.
I would like to add, have you seen some of these tricks that Cosmo the Cougar does on the court? If these mascots played an actual basketball game, Cosmo's not letting anybody score.
That is a fact. There's no chance that Cosmo is a student. Definitely a paid
Good dancer too.
gymnastics
And
professional.
Do clip this. This is the first thing we have ever agreed on.
Yes, that is a fact.
We'll clip that too. Guys, with all the celebs you've been reaching out to, I've got to ask, I mean, how do you even figure out who you want to reach out to? You have such a long list.
Yeah, so I would say friends, family, people in this very room we're sitting in with right now. So, you know, a vast, wide number of sources.
Yeah, we cast a wide net. If we think of anybody, we hit them. We had a former March Madness legend last night DM us and say, "How do I get featured with a bracket on your account?" So we
that's
sent him the
great.
link.
Yes, we have random people DMing us their bracket with a photo of themselves saying, "This is me." So you go ahead and post that.
Yeah,
We're like,
please
"Who are
don't
you?"
do that. We
What was-
filter our DMs to begin with. Occasionally we might go look just to see what you guys are messaging us. After today, we're not looking back there again. Please stop messaging us.
What was like the biggest, Hail Mary you took? Like, let's just see if this celeb will
Oh,
send
Taylor
this
Swift,
one.
easily.
Taylor Swift, Drake.
Oh, yeah.
We messaged Drake.
Yeah.
People who will never know we exist. People who don't
Yeah.
even know it's March
We're the
yet,
shy.
maybe.
Drake knows this March.
Yeah.
He's
That's-
apparently a
that's
good
Yeah,
basketball
he
fan,
does.
so-
Yeah.
Yeah, Drake,
And I'm
you're such a big
surprised
college
Taylor
basketball
Swift's
fan.
not
Message us.
hopping on the bandwagon after
know.
getting involved in the football scene.
Well, speaking of football, we messaged the Kelseys too, all of them, not
Ah.
just Travis. left on red by all of them. So thanks a lot,
When we
guys.
tell you every Kelsey, every single one.
We've been big league by
Mama
every
Kelsey,
Mama Kelsey.
Papa
I was gonna
Kelsey.
say
Jason.
Mama Kelsey.
And Jason, you have no
Wow.
excuse now.
Kelsey.
You're retired. What do you do now?
Yeah, that is too good. I love it. How about the best fan reactions you've gotten? Kind of replying to some of your tweets or replying to some of the celeb brackets. What are some of the
Oh.
funniest stuff?
It's got to be The Bachelor.
Yes, those have definitely been the funniest so far.
Nobody knows who that is.
Yeah, and then also I'll give a shout out to Lobo Louie replying to someone today who was saying that he shouldn't be in the mascot Final Four. And Lobo, what did Lobo Louie say?
Lobo Louie just responded and said L.
L take or something like that.
Oh, that's
The official
great. I'm
Lobo
glad I'm
Louie
picking.
account.
Glad I'm picking
Stand up for
Mexico now to
yourself.
win that first round.
Exactly.
Too
Yeah.
good. All right. I asked you guys yesterday your favorite March Madness memory from last year. Now I'm going to ask you your overall favorite March Madness memory, your whole life.
You can start us off.
All right. For me, I think so. I grew up, Sharif won't get off of this. I grew up as a Duke fan. When
Correct.
I went to ECU, I grew
Hmm.
up. I am no longer a Duke fan. But when I was a Duke fan, obviously was not at all a fan of North Carolina. So watching that national championship game with Villanova, watching Chris Jenkins hit that shot at the buzzer was a super cool
Yeah.
moment. And to be fair, in general,
That's what
I think
that's what
it would
was
be a lot of people's answers. That's one of the coolest college basketball moments
Yeah.
they've ever seen. But for me, knowing that there were, bigger stakes on the line of don't let my rival team of my fandom win a national championship was a big deal.
Yeah.
Now you're a pirate.
Yeah, like I said, I grew up.
Yeah.
We're good now.
Yeah.
All right, Sharif.
Yeah, I think for me, the moment would be, I think it was the 2005 national championship. I am around 7 years old at the time, just to show you how like into this I have been. My dad's watching right now, and I'm not sure if he remembers this moment, but 7-year-old me, like being very adamant to him that North Carolina were definitely beating Illinois in that championship, and they did. And I got the bragging rights over him. So.
Eternal bragging rights.
Eternal bragging
Yeah,
rights.
yeah.
Exactly. So that shows I was kind of destined for this role.
I can guarantee you your dad remembers that.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. He's watching right now. I'm sure he'll text me right after this.
All right. How about, that's all in hindsight, a big prediction for this year?
Not McNeese related.
I mean, if you want to.
No, I'll change it. I will say Purdue is out in the Sweet 16. I actually talked about this with some of you guys earlier. Wayne, I think we talked about it a little bit. I think Purdue is improved from last year's team, but I still think the holes are there in the team where if a team sells out defensively to stop Zach Edey, all you have to do after that is hope the rest of the team is having an off shooting night. That's what FDU did. It worked. A 16 seed is not going to beat Purdue for a second year in a row, obviously. I really hope you guys aren't picking that in your bracket. But the holes are there. The blueprint is there. FDU laid the blueprint last year. Somebody will follow up on that this year.
Yeah, for
Good
me, again, I'm staying on the James Madison train. I think James Madison's making it to the Sweet 16. I think they can win 2 games in a row. Why not? So, what would they have? Duke next after that? As I know, CJ as a Duke fan would be.
I should have never brought it up.
Little bit
or Vermont
upset.
or Vermont.
Or
UVM
Vermont.
could do it again. You never know. Yeah.
Or Vermont. Who perennially
Remember
lose in the first
Syracuse?
round.
Syracuse remembers Vermont, so maybe.
Oh yeah, they do. They do. Was that the last time they won in the first round?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it could happen again.
Run it back.
Oof.
Duke is cold right now, to be fair. So,
Yeah.
All right, last one for you guys before I let you go. Andy Katz has posted his top 10 players in the tournament, or I should say you guys posted Andy Katz's list. Who are the players that are under the radar that can make a national name for themselves this year, in your opinion, not Andy Katz?
For me, I think I have his team making a March Madness run, at least to the Sweet 16, might be to the Elite Eight. But I'm going to go with Deron Holmes from Dayton. I think he is the best non-power conference player in the country. I think given the matchups that could be ahead, hypothetically, obviously we don't know all the matchups, but given who he could play going forward in the tournament, he could be one of the most dominant players in the tournament this year.
Yeah. For me, I'm not even sure how far this team is going to go, but I know in that first round, if he has a big game, his name will be on everyone's lips, and that's Keisei Tominaga. I think he's been electric the past 2 seasons, one of the most fun players to watch in college basketball. He's like someone that's going to be lighting it up from downtown, one of the best 3-point shooters in the country. So I think he is the name that you need to look out for that's flying under the radar.
All right, heard it here first from Sharif and CJ. You guys have had a lot of takes, but thanks so much. I'll let you get back to posting on March Madness. Thanks, guys.
Thank you.
All right. Well, Stats and I actually sat down with another celeb to break down her bracket, and this time it was CNN's Caitlin Collins. Let's take a look at that before we head to break. We now welcome in Caitlin Collins, anchor of The Source on CNN. Caitlin, thank you so much for coming on. We're excited to have you.
Thanks for having me. It's great to be here. And I always get stressed making my bracket because I'm like, what at my peril am I doing? But then I'm like in between like some morning meetings today, like while I'm making it, and I'm like, okay, I'm putting too much time in this. It doesn't like just pick, because whoever, even if I put a lot of thought into it, they're gonna like be the bracket buster or something like that. So I just was like, just go with your gut,
I know, that's always what ends up happening. We all spend hours on our brackets and then it doesn't matter anyways because we can't be perfect. That's actually the whole point of the show. But for those who maybe don't know, you went to Alabama, big Alabama football fan. Can you just tell us a little bit about yourself and your sports fandom in general?
Yeah, I mean, I've always been a sports fan. I didn't really think it was like that big of a deal because in the South, like basically everyone is. And so it wasn't until like I moved to Washington, and which I did like a month after I graduated from Alabama, that I realized that people were making other plans on like Saturdays in the fall, which I thought I really couldn't fathom. Like I was like, you want to go to brunch? Like we have an 11 a.m. kickoff. And so it took me a minute to like kind of understand that was like not what everyone did on Saturdays. But yeah, I loved going to Alabama, and I love going back. I go back for several games a year, and my little brother is actually there right now. And yeah, it's just always been so much fun. And basketball has been fun because obviously Alabama is known for being a football school, but their other athletics are amazing. And I can remember my freshman year, it was January 2011, when Alabama upset Kentucky at home. And it was this insane game that we were like, oh, like we'll go to the game for a little bit and then maybe leave and head out. And it was such an incredible game. I was just revisiting it a few moments ago because I was like thinking about what an awesome game that was. So Alabama obviously is not known for being a basketball school, but I love their program. I love Nate Oates, and they've been really fun to watch. So we'll see how they fare this March Madness.
Well, Caitlin, luckily we're talking about basketball because I went to Georgia, big Georgia football fan over here.
Oh boy.
I'm glad we don't have to talk about that. But yeah, Alabama a 4 seed this year, a 1 seed last year. So are you excited to watch them in March Madness?
I'm excited, but I feel like we got a brutal pick here. I mean, going up against North Carolina is like, I don't want to complain because everyone's complaining. Auburn's complaining, UAB is complaining, everyone at all the Alabama schools are complaining. But I feel like we have a pretty brutal option. But I really think, obviously last Friday did not go well for us when we were playing Florida, and we have not played our best basketball as of lately. I say we like I'm on the team, like working out and like working on my jump shot. I'm definitely not, and I appreciate that they put much more work in it than I do. But I don't know. I still think there's a chance. I think people who are counting Alabama out, and I was thinking about this while I was making my bracket today. I don't think you should sleep on Alabama because I do think that there's an option that they could show up and they could play at their best and maybe be in for some kind of Sweet 16 shocker. Obviously, I'm always an optimist when it comes to sports, and so I'm excited to watch them play and just see how they do. And I think that they've got a lot of great players on the team. Our defense is not the best, but I'm rooting for us. I think it could be a good tournament for us.
All right, well, let's take a look at your bracket. We'll put it to the test here in March Madness. Let's take a look at some of your upset picks. Who you have in the Final Four and your championship pick?
Well, I do not have Alabama going to the Final Four, which will tell you that I'm actually not an optimist. I'm a realist. I think that, I couldn't do it. My little brother was looking at my bracket this morning and he was like, really? And I was like, okay, Brayden, sorry. So for my Final Four, I've got UConn, Arizona, Houston, and Creighton. And I think it's going to be UConn and Houston in the championship game. I don't know who's going to pull it off out of there. I mean, this was kind of a tough pick for me because obviously UConn is coming into this with such momentum. But I think that there could be a lot of, upsets and unknowns here, which is, what you're always watching for before you actually get to this. And so I'm hopeful, but I don't know. I was looking at a lot of the other games and just looking at where Auburn is and seeing how they're going to do. I think that'll be really fun. I was looking at the Tennessee game as well. I mean, there are a lot of games in here that I think I'll be keeping my eye on. And, with Arizona, what I was thinking about is just, I love a good narrative and seeing, as someone who just appreciates sports and appreciates the athletes and their stories that they go through, I was thinking of just how fun it would be to watch Caleb Love, play North Carolina, what that could look like. And so I always love a moment like that. That's what I'm always looking for on Saturdays in the fall. But that's also what I'll be looking for in this tournament as well.
Such good storylines. Stats, I know you had a question about it.
Yeah, so I love how your brother's coming after you for not picking Alabama to win it all, but yet Elite Eight's pretty far. I mean, it's not like you have them losing the first round here, so I got to defend you a little bit here.
Exactly. That's what. Okay, I mean, Brayden he's a sophomore. He's so hopeful. He's so young and so optimistic, as most 20-year-olds are. And he also thinks that I didn't put Purdue going far enough in this. I actually don't have a lot of confidence in Purdue to make it too much further. We'll see what happens. But yeah, I think, as a delusional fan, sometimes you always put your team maybe one step further than someone who has like no skin in the game would. But I think I have reasoning for this because if you look what happened to Alabama football, in the fall, no one thought that they were going to make it to the playoffs, much less, as far as they did. And, there we were sitting in California playing Michigan. So I'm hopeful and not counting us out. And, I'd rather have Alabama going further than if they go further than if I had them, and then I'd feel like a bad fan.
Yeah.
Well, you can make two brackets, one with your favorite team winning and then one for the realist side of you.
Exactly. One who's like actually, I'm so competitive. So when I'm in groups with my friends or we always have, loser has to make a lemonade stand or something like that. I'm so competitive about it, even though I'm not, the number one basketball, aficionado or knowledge wise. I still am competitive, crazy about it. So it's really fun to watch.
Any other quick upset picks you have, maybe early in the first rounds that you want to point out?
There's just a few that I'm watching. Nebraska, I think, will be really fun. One of my favorite colleagues, Jeff Zeleny, is a Nebraska guy. And we were just talking about their team and what it looks like. I really care about the players and the individuals. I also think DJ Burns Jr. will be so fun to watch. I love like a big guy on the court, and he's always cracking me up at his post-game press conferences. So I'll be watching all of them. I'm also keeping a close eye, on the women as well. Caitlin Clark has been someone who I have just admired so much and think is amazing. And I know everyone shares that, but there was a moment in the Republican primary where Nikki Haley was in Iowa and she meant to say Caitlin Clark and she said Caitlin Collins, and it was just this comical moment. And so Ron DeSantis actually got me this Caitlin Clark t-shirt jersey that I have, which I'm going to wear this weekend because it was just so funny. Like it was just obviously a slip of the tongue. But I love the women's teams, and so I'll be watching them as well to see.
Yeah, we'll be rooting for Caitlin Collins and the Iowa Hawkeyes. But what a storyline there, if you like one, with her trying to win the national championship as her last accolade. She's got the rest of them.
I know. She's amazing. The other one that I love is too, and this is so random, but Long Beach State and what's happening with their coach since he, obviously they're saying he won't stay with the team much longer after the postseason. But I still think it's like, okay, well, you never know. You're saying there's a chance. Let's see how he does. I just think there's a lot of fun storylines to watch. You guys have a really exciting few weeks ahead of you.
Oh, we do. It's really
Oh, yeah.
exciting. Caitlin, thank you so much for joining us, breaking down your bracket. You can find Caitlin on The Source with Caitlin Collins that airs weeknights at 9 p.m. Eastern on CNN. Caitlin, good luck with that bracket and good luck
Yes,
to
and
the
we are trying to
Crimson
get
Tide.
Caitlin Clark on, so hopefully she'll come on if they do really well,
That'd be
because we
great.
love her. So I'll make my pitch here.
Thanks so much, Caitlin.
Thanks, guys. Roll Tide.
Thank you.
Sorry about that, guys. Welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. Before we get into our next segment, let's throw it back to last season's March Madness. Here's how it all went down. Let's do another March Madness rewind and break down brackets from years past. Wayne, let's take a look at 2023 now. What went down this year?
Yeah, this year was just really weird. It was like nothing that was supposed to happen somehow happened. So it was the second time ever that a 16 seed beat a 1 with FDU topping Purdue, although that's not happened twice in the last 5 tournaments.
Yeah, and I, for one, had Purdue winning it all in my bracket. So this was a tough year for me. I had Arizona in the Final Four too, which was another huge upset in the first round.
Yeah, but don't worry, you weren't the only one. So 2 of the top 8 most picked champs were Purdue and Arizona, and they both went out in the first round. Alabama was actually number 1 overall seed this tournament, but it was Houston, another top seed, that was the most popular champ pick, coming in at 20.18%. Maybe some of that also because the Final Four wasn't Houston, so some sentimental pick there. But long story short, Michaela, you were by far not the only one to have trouble picking this Final Four.
Well, thank you for that, Wayne. That makes me feel a little bit better. But what else happened? I know it got even more wild.
Yeah, so for the third year in a row, a 15 seed made the Sweet 16, which is pretty wild considering that happened only one time ever before this current run of Oral Roberts, St. Peter's, and Princeton. Then you throw in the fact that for the first time ever, we had 0 number 1 seeds in Elite Eight. And it's almost like everyone kind of wanted to do a redo after that first round.
Yeah, I was one of them. And then the Final Four continued the trend, right?
Yeah, so 3 of the Final Four teams had never been there before, and for the first time, 0 teams seeded 1 through 3 made it to the Final Four. In our bracket challenge game, only 6 brackets correctly had all 4 Final Four teams, just really, really crazy. And of the Final Four teams, 3 of them were picked as champions on fewer than 1% of brackets. Eventual champion UConn was picked on only about 2% of brackets as well. But they were the most popular number 4 seed, and they were much more popular than they were in 2014, which was the last time they won as a 7 seed when they were picked on only 0.23% of brackets.
So I'm guessing perfect brackets were gone pretty early this year.
Yes, we had 787 left after the first day, which was actually pretty good considering the last few years we had under 200 after the first day, but no one knew, of course, that FDU was looming on Friday. Every remaining bracket busted, all 26 of them on game 25 when FDU took down Purdue in the 16-1 upset.
All right, Wayne. So speaking of 2023, this is the perfect time to take a look at who won the men's and women's bracket challenge game last season. I don't know about you, Stats, but I just love looking at how the winners picked. And I'm usually like, how the heck did they get that right?
It is so humbling because you see these brackets and go, how did they get all these games right? You know, because everyone's so confident every year. Then you see the end results, you're like, these people are just on a different level than I am. And
yeah, it's
so we could
how did they
yeah.
get that?
Yeah.
All right.
So, yeah,
Well,
we could
let's
start
take
with
a look at the women's bracket first. One thing that really impressed me is that picking anybody but undefeated defending national champion South Carolina seemed pretty crazy last season, but it clearly worked out for the winner.
Yeah, sometimes taking a risk, you know, a small risk, not a huge risk, can work out for you by not picking the undefeated obvious team. Maybe that's puts me on alert this year with South Carolina again. But good to hear, yeah, this bracket it's really impressive. You know, going for four for 4 in the Final Four is, you know, I feel like in women's basketball, especially because there aren't as many upsets. You know, we have seen 16-1 in women's, but not as many. You know, there's no 15s, no 14s yet. So you really got to get the Final Four right. And you see this winning bracket did exactly that and got 6 of the Elite Eight. I mean, that's just so impressive. Now, and the 2 Elite Eight teams that this bracket missed were Stanford and Indiana, and those teams lost in the second round. So they weren't really losing a lot of points there because, I'll be honest, basically everybody lost points from losing those 2 games so early. So that wasn't that unusual. Honestly, the really fascinating thing about this one is, well, a couple things. One is absolutely nailing the UConn Ohio State game. You know, UConn had made 14 consecutive, Final Fours. Seemed like that's just what they do every year. This year, last year they got upset 3-2. But considering the stakes of it with UConn always going there, even with the injuries, getting Ohio State to beat UConn is really impressive. And then going Vatek in the Final Four, getting all 4 Final Four games correctly. And as a note, it's kind of funny. Last year there were these upsets. We mentioned quite a few times, me among chief among them, as Florida Gulf Coast picking off an upset in the first round last year against Washington State. This bracket did not do that. In fact, this bracket only picked 2 double-digit seeds to win just a game. And it was, Georgia was correct, so they got Georgia right. The other one was a 10 seed, which, as we've talked about by the NCAA's, official use of upset doesn't really factor into it. Usually we mean it by 11 seed difference. So getting one of 2 double-digit teams correct is pretty good, considering there are a lot more than actually happened, which again, just can reinforce what we talked about. Maybe talk about more is you don't need to get every single or most or all first round games correct. You can get some games wrong in the women's game and the men's game too, but it's okay. Don't stress out. You missed that 7-10 or 8-9 game. It's going to be all right. Or 5-12. I mean, that game got wrong here, but you got to hit those late 8 and Final Fours, and that's what this bracket did.
All right, well, let's take a look at the men's winning bracket. Usually, Stats, the winners have to have the Final Four, the champ game, and the champion right. But I can't imagine, did anybody get the Final Four right last season?
So here's the crazy thing. Somehow 6 people, 6 in our bracket challenge game on the men's side got it right. 6.
That is mind-blowing.
I know it's that was one of the most fun stories we had to go into because you're like, surely no one got this right, and somehow 6 people did. Shout out to those 6. We'll see if they can do it again because last year's tournament was just unreal with all the upsets.
It
No
really
1
was.
seeds, no 2 seeds. I mean, just truly just a crazy tournament. But they get 3 of the 4 right, and the one they missed. They had Texas in there, made the lead 8, so they almost went 4-for-4. So it kind of tells
Yeah.
you how crazy accurate this was, especially getting San Diego State right, FAU right. UConn was kind of the 4, the most obvious answer, and even that was from the 4 seed line. So that tells you just how impressive this bracket was. They got 6 of the 8 correct on the Elite 8. So you can see here they missed Missouri and Michigan State, but the other ones were all set. I mean, truly just really remarkable to know when to pick your spots on the upsets. That's the key. Knowing what that FAU would win is impressive. They had FAU beating Purdue, so they kind of caught a break there, maybe with FDU taking out Purdue for them. But you can see right here, number 9 FAU was in the Final Four and also was the highest seed picked in the first round of this bracket. If you look at this bracket, there are 0 double-digit seeds winning in the first round, which it means they don't win ever. And look at this bracket won. So again, but
Yeah.
they took chances late, which is why they won. So I'm not saying you can't pick any upsets, but you can see they were very selective when they went with their upsets. FAU, I mentioned, making the Final Four, of course. San Diego State taking out Alabama, which was the #1 overall seed, was a big chance. Miami taking out Houston. So it doesn't mean you can't pick upsets. It's just sometimes you're lucky. You'd have to know when they're going to start kicking in, when you're going to get them right. And this one kind of just really just got it, just perfect. Even missing that Texas instead of Miami, that's small potatoes compared to everything else they got right. This really is just an amazing. You see it and you go, oh, I get why they won now. It makes sense.
And to think the 6 brackets that had the correct Final Four didn't win.
Exactly. Yeah. That tells you so it's knowing to know when to take chances and when to not to. Usually you have to get the Final Four teams correct. So another time didn't happen with our winner was 2018 when Chicago made their run to the Final Four. That winning bracket didn't get that right. But usually you have to go 4-for-4. So this was kind of an outlier, but this kind of falls in line with what we've seen in past years. Usually you want to get around 50 games correct of the 63 in the bracket. And this one fell right in around that margin. That's what you kind of want to see. Try to get those 50. We've talked about it before. That's the magic number is 50, especially getting those championship games right. You can see here, UConn over San Diego State was the big one. Getting that particular combo correct in the final is what sent them over the top.
Well, make sure everybody fills out their brackets, scan that QR code in the bottom left corner. Maybe you could be the bracket that we're talking about next year when we're analyzing who won. So fill out those brackets. We're going to head to break, but first let's toss it over to Andy Katz, who sat down with another Cinderella of years past. We've got JP Pegues from Furman last season.
And now joining me, JP Pegues, who hit for Furman maybe the most famous shot ever, and it certainly resonated across March Madness history. It'll become folklore. It was a crazy game against Virginia as Furman upset Virginia in March Madness. It's just another crazy loss for Virginia, but what elation for Furman. Let's go back to that shot and the ending and how it all occurred. What do you remember most before you even got the basketball to be in position to hit that game-winning 3?
Man, honestly, I remember just Garrett, he hitting those 2 huge free throws. At the time, he was a 50% free throw shooter. So, if you play the percentages, he's only making 1 out of 2. So the fact that he made 2, it was big for us. And then next thing you know, at the time, we had the press. So we got in the full court man-to-man press. We caught one of their guards in the coffin corner, and we had him right where we wanted it. And then, I just remember – we had a lot of pressure on him and he flung the ball. And without me turning around, I'm either thinking okay, he just threw this because somebody's wide open and we're not going to have enough time to foul, or we just pressured him enough to throw a turnover, in which he did. And when I saw the ball just go up into the air and saw Garrett catch the ball, the next thing I remember was just me kind of clapping my hands, getting my hands ready for the ball. And as soon as the ball was coming my way, in my mind, I just told myself, just let it go. And, that's what I did. And when it came off, it felt right. And, it just gave me chills when it went in.
What's that feeling like? I mean, very few of us ever would have a feeling like that. I mean, you were literally in a group that you could probably fit on one hand, in modern March Madness that hits a shot like that. And so you're in a select company, the elation, you know, the running around, the huddle, like what is that like to make a shot like that on that stage?
Man, honestly, I tell people a lot that, I crave for those moments and stuff like that. But, a moment specifically like that in that arena, in that, just escape of things, the whole situation, like as a kid, those are just the moments that you dream of. Those are the moments where you're in your backyard and you're counting down from 5, hitting the game winner in front of thousands of fans. And that's exactly what happened for me. And just, to be proud of my team for the way we fought back in that game, just the build up of, we were coming back and the whole arena seemed like they were on our side and wanted something good to happen. And just when that shot went down, all you could hear was or all I heard was ears just ringing at that point. And I just seen teammates, coaching staff jumping up and down, fans jumping up and down. So just for not even myself, but for the program, like that's just something that some people dream of. And to be able to celebrate that with my teammates, like I said, it was a dream come true.
What's it like to know that you've, after the fact, busted brackets everywhere?
Man, it's crazy. Like when you're on the other side of that and you're the one making the brackets and you find out that it get busted because the team upset it, it's just like, it's crazy at the end of the day. And I feel like it's the same way on the other side. For us, one, to prove all the doubters wrong and show who Furman really was, the basketball program. But two, also to just, like I said earlier, to have a moment like that you can celebrate and you'll remember forever and know that we proved people wrong, but the people that were with us, we got them to unify and come together as one. I think that's the big picture for us.
And lastly, JP, for those that will follow, in 2024 and beyond, what are the keys to stay with it, to play to the last final second, to pull off an upset the way Furman did against Virginia?
Man, honestly, I think it all comes down to culture and what you're really about. Those moments, they're super hard. Like you said, Virginia, they're one of the best defensive teams in the country at that point in time. So I think, for teams that ask how they did it or things like that, I say culture, just battling adversity, never quitting, and coming together as one. I feel like that's something that's been big for us, last season and continuing on. That's just part of Furman basketball. So I say those are the biggest things that, help making that dream come true.
Well, you certainly provided an incredible moment for all of us to witness. You are in March Madness folklore forever. Appreciate your time, JP.
Man, thank you. Thank you so much.
right, welcome back to the Quest for the Perfect Bracket show. In our next segment, we are going to take questions from fans. So feel free to start dropping any questions you have in the comments on YouTube, Bleacher Report, and we'll get to them next. But Stats, the time has come for me to share my own bracket.
Oh, yeah. No
I
pressure.
have had 3 days to prepare, and I still waited until the very last second to fill out my bracket because I'm the most indecisive person there is. And typically I pick not based off of any of the data that we preached all the fans, but instead just with my gut. And it always fails me every year. So
I know. Does it feel weird to be on the hot seat now? I feel like you've been grilling people with their picks. Yeah.
It does feel a little weird. I'm feeling a little uncomfortable here, but here's my bracket. Again, I do like to pick mostly based on my gut. I do go with a few things that we've been, talking about on here, and I look at some of the matchups, but I like scoring. I like offense. That's something that I like a lot. So I do take that into account. But mostly, for the most part, it is my gut. So taking a look at my bracket, I do have New Mexico making it and taking down Baylor. So I'm with the fans on that one, taking New Mexico. I really struggled with Arizona, North Carolina, but I really like that matchup because similar to Caitlin Collins, I really love storylines. So I love that storyline of players facing their former team. I went with the same thing on the right side with picking Oregon over South Carolina because I love the storyline in that matchup. So I went with Oregon, and I also picked them to upset Creighton. That was kind of a gut pick. Picking Tennessee over Purdue. Now that is because I am completely and utterly scarred. I went with Purdue to win it last year, and I'm pretty sure I came in like last place in every bracket group I was in because I also had Arizona in the Final Four.
So did Cats.
I don't know.
So,
Yeah. But Stats, I know you had Purdue going far last year, and you kind of were like, okay, they're due, so I'm going to pick them to win. I couldn't decide what to do about that.
It's really, really hard. Yeah. And see, I'm jealous of you, Mikkel, because you're going with your heart. I'm going just being contrarian. So you're going with almost like, why not go with your heart? And also, your heart is probably going to be right. I mean, Kentucky, we've seen how popular Kentucky is on the 3 line. I mean, they are very, very popular. We know they have the talent to do it. So, yeah, I don't think it's a weird pick. I got to say, though, shout out to you for the McNeese-Sanford matchup in the second round. I love when you can see a 13 versus 12 in the second round. That would be great. I would love to see that.
Yeah. Anything else you're seeing in my bracket that shouts crazy to you? I had Duke over Houston.
Yeah.
They've
That's
been
a big one.
cold,
Yeah.
but was just, again, feeling it. Houston coming off of a loss, was just going for it. I do like SEC teams. So obviously got Tennessee and Kentucky in the Final Four with UConn and North Carolina. And then I ended up going with UConn and Kentucky. I went back and forth on Kentucky and Tennessee for a really long time. And then I ended up being like, okay, obviously I'm going to have UConn win it. And that was just my gut. So I clicked it, and everybody's going with UConn. And then I was like, you know what? I don't want to go. I don't want to. I want to take like a risk here. And when I was looking at all the stats and stuff, Kentucky has one of the best offenses in the country, which is something I really like. They're led by Antonio Reeves. I think they rank second in the country in points per game. They're really good 3-point shooters. So I was like, you know what? That's what I like. I love offense. So I'm just going to go with it. And I almost changed it. I almost went with UConn. And then I was like, well, then I'm going to be so mad if Kentucky were to actually win. And I think I'll be okay if UConn wins. Like, I'll be fine. But if Kentucky won and I changed it last minute, then I would be livid. So
exactly.
I'm keeping my pick.
I think you should stick with it. Obviously, change it if you want, but at least for someone like myself, I like it. Once I pick something, I'm like you. If I pick something and then change it back, and what I had originally does happen, I'm like, why did I change it for? I had it right the first time. So I think this is really cool. Like you said, Mikkel, it's hard. not to go with UConn all the way. So I think you had the
Yeah.
right mix of making them go all the way except to the last game. I think that's a good way to go with it. Try to get a lot of points from UConn, going very far, and then sticking with Kentucky. Yeah, I'm with you. That Duke pick over Houston's going to be interesting to watch. I mean, we thought last year Houston seemed like a team of destiny making it out there with the Final Four in
Right.
Houston. It seemed like that just seems going to happen, and they lost in the Sweet 16 to Miami. So it could happen again this year in Sweet 16. You never know. Again, the games that you're most confident about are the ones that usually go wrong, and the games you're least confident about are the ones that seem to go right. That's what March Madness is.
Exactly. Exactly. That's exactly what's going to happen. I'm just fully expecting that whatever I put in my bracket might not happen, but who knows? Maybe I'll have a good year this year because I had a really bad one
Yeah.
last year. It was not
Yeah.
fun for me. So I'm
Yeah,
like
you're due
holding
for a
out
bounce
hope.
back.
I'm
Yeah,
due.
yeah.
I'm
Yeah,
due,
yeah.
just like Purdue.
Exactly. Yeah,
All
yeah.
right, yeah. Yeah, so we'll see. I've got some blue bloods in my Final Four. UConn losing in the championship game. We'll see. I mean, Kentucky is pretty popular among bracket pickers, right? Just today,
Yeah.
Arizona surpassed them.
Yeah, and especially
Um,
that little like quadrant they're in, I think has a good recipe. Especially if Marquette's not 100%. It kind of, in theory,
Yeah.
you think they'll kind of not clear the lane, but make it a little more open for Kentucky. We say this, and now watch Oakland bust everybody's brackets in round one.
Yeah, and I'm on the McNeese bandwagon too. I do have
Yeah.
McNeese making it to my Elite Eight, like a lot of other bracket pickers have. So there's that. We do have a question, and it's going to be a perfect segue into looking at my women's bracket, and maybe your stats. But John Lee said that he predicts UConn to win in the women's and men's bracket. Has that happened
Ooh.
before, stats?
Yes, UConn has done that. That's probably the coolest bragging rights they have in terms of basketball is being able to do the double dip, let's say, on the
Yeah.
men's and women's side. And you know what? What's kind of funny. That was talked about a lot, especially in the last decade of them double dipping and winning both. But hasn't really, considering how good both teams are this year, especially on the men's side, that hasn't really been up for discussion a lot. I wonder if it's because South Carolina women and Iowa women are so popular that UConn's kind of like not forgotten about. You never forget about UConn women's basketball, but they're not the top pick like they were with all the years they're undefeated with all that talent they have. They still have a lot of talent back. They could make a run again. So yeah, I mean, in some ways that's a great point and great question. I do kind of think it's almost like not talked about enough that it could very well happen again with the UConn sweeping both. So we'll see. I mean, especially on the men's side, that seems nothing's a lock, but definitely the favorite, especially by the nation so far on the men's side.
Which is also just shows how much the women's game has grown. The fact that we're not even talking about Paige Beckers a ton. Like we're talking more about
I
Caitlin
know.
Clark and Angel Reese. And we're forgetting about a name like Paige Beckers. All right, so here's my women's bracket. This is mine, right?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm like, I filled this out a few hours ago. I should know that it's my bracket. So yeah, I am going with Iowa to win my bracket. And again, that is because I absolutely love storylines. And I think the storyline of Caitlin Clark having won every award there is to win in college basketball and having broken pretty much every record, and the one thing she's missing is a national championship. I mean, I just love to root for that. And I know South Carolina is the heavy favorite. I guess I really don't like to go with the heavy favorite because I'm not going with South Carolina or UConn in my men's bracket. But yeah, I like to go for a close second or third. And I just love the storyline of Caitlin Clark, and I love watching her. I love what she's done for the women's game. I love watching women's sports. I obviously cover college volleyball really to the highest extent. And that happened a few years ago. I remember Logan Eggleston. It was like she was the best player in college volleyball, and all she hadn't done was won a title. And then she did in her senior season. So that's what I'm rooting for to happen with Caitlin Clark. I have South Carolina, Stanford, Iowa, and USC in my Final Four. I'm going with Juju Watkins in her freshman season. I think she's too good to go cold in the tournament. I don't think she's going cold anytime soon. I do have an upset pick in the bottom left. I have Utah over Texas. I just think that Utah has some really strong players. I haven't seen Texas like a ton in the same way that obviously Autumn covers it. So I was like, I'm going to take a risk here and go with Utah. I felt that one in my gut. But what do you think? What do you think of my picks here?
I know about you, Michaela, but after Autumn's on, I'm like trying to like see, oh no, did I pick wrong here? And I feel like I
I
should be
know.
getting close to what she has.
Same
You know,
thing.
yeah, so it's funny. So I tried I'm glad I didn't see your bracket beforehand. This is the first time I'm seeing it. So
Okay.
it's funny things that we have in common and things that are different. But I gotta say, I love the call for Marshall upsetting Virginia Tech. Talked about,
Yeah.
want to see how the lack of, not 100% healthy on Virginia Tech side. Marshall, 13 seed. We have seen 13 seeds win before, not as often as the men, but it does happen. So that'd be a cool shout out there. It seems like we're primed for a lot of upsets this year because everyone's paying attention to, the big heavy hitters, South Carolina, Iowa, LSU, UConn, that I feel like there's a chance maybe a 14 makes history and pulls an upset. Maybe a 15 goes for a run here or keeps it close. But yeah, I love what your bracket so far. I see you picked A&M taking out Nebraska in 11-6. Like Autumn said, 11-6 if you want to pick an upset and try to win. You can pick upsets, but you might not win. If you want to pick smart upsets, at least data wise, you start with the 11 seeds and go from there. So I think the A&M pick is a good one. And then I think we're all on this bandwagon, Michaela. Florida Gulf Coast in the first round. Yeah, which means Oklahoma's probably going to win now because we seem to all on that bandwagon. but yeah,
I mean, you said
that's
it. They
great
did
one.
it for the past 2 seasons, right? I mean,
yeah.
It's hard
kind
to
of
pick
seems
against
like
that.
Yeah, it sounds like if they win again, it's like this. If they win again and you don't pick them, that would bother me more than me picking them and them losing. Because it seems like if it happens and you're like, well, of course they did that. They've made a habit of it. So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense here. And as you talked about with Autumn, doubling up or in your case getting 3 1 seeds in the Final Four, definitely the safe way to go. 1s and 2s, that's the magic combo for women's basketball. Throwing in some 3s, as we saw LSU last year, 3s can happen. So yeah, this is great. I like this bracket a lot. In my opinion,
and I've got
as
Stanford
we all
in there.
know the answers. Yeah.
Yeah, we really don't know anything. Let's be honest.
No.
I got Stanford in there too, because I really enjoy watching Cameron Brink. So some of it too is just rooting for your favorite players to go the distance. And,
exactly.
I think there's a lot of superstars in women's basketball, and most of them I put in my Final Four. So that's what I was doing. But any chance you want to show your women's bracket?
Yeah, let's show mine. Okay, so again, I want to preface it by saying I did not see your bracket ahead of time, Michaela. So any coincidences that people see, anything that looks similar, it's just it wasn't planned. So
We're
let me show you what I got.
Wavelength.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is what I got. I too have Iowa winning the championship.
You do.
Although,
Okay.
although I did note my final score is a little higher than yours. I could see Cade Clark putting up 40 or more to win a championship.
You're so right.
but you can see, but you have time. Brackets don't lock till first game tips 11:30 on Friday, so you have time. Me too. I'm gonna change. I'm sure I'll change a couple of my bracket, my picks too. But I got South Carolina and Stanford. The one Final Four difference, the big one, of course, is I have UConn. It just seems like this is the year where they make it back. They missed one Final Four, and it felt so weird without UConn there. So I feel like they got to go back again. So I do have UConn Final Four, but I have Iowa, South Carolina playing in the title game. Which I mean, we saw the ratings last year for the Final Four in the championship game. This year, it seems like it's poised to just break records again. Really, any combination. There's so many great storylines. We talked about USC, Juju Watkins. There's so many great storylines beyond just the top two that it seems like you can't go wrong with how this is going to break out. Kind of like the men's basketball tournament. Either you get crazy upsets or you get these top seeds with big names. It's just going to be great. But I don't know about you, but I got to start off, of course, with talking about upsets. I got to show Florida Gulf Coast. I'm going farther though than you two. I'm going the Sweet 16. So I think this is I think it's their graduation to the Sweet 16. They made the second round the last 2 years. I think there's a chance to go through kind of, again, it's not an easy path. Nothing's easy in March Madness. Yeah. But I think the 4 and 5s that they could come up with, or 5 and 4 in that order, could be kind of ripe for Florida Gulf Coast to make it the Sweet 16 this year.
I like it though. Stick with your pick.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I said, you know what? That's a heart pick, and I feel like that's I'll be good about that. You know, I won't feel weird about picking that one. Another one too is another upset. I do have. I know it's okay. This part actually worked out great because you're all over Utah, and now I have Utah losing to the Jackrabbits in the first round. So the
Okay,
reason,
so
so here,
that's how you
yes,
know, everybody, that Stats did not see my bracket because we're
yeah,
clearly
yeah.
on different pages there.
Yeah. So here's my reason for that is the Summit League, especially South Dakota State and South Dakota, um, they are very, very scary in the tournament. South Dakota State made the Sweet 16. South Dakota's made a run as well. So this seed line's a little higher than when they made those runs in the past. But I feel like the Jackrabbits have come through for me before. This is a program that knows how to win in March. Not that Utah doesn't, but I feel like, you know, they have a chance to go on a run here, South Dakota State. Gonzaga is gonna be a tough one though in the second round. We know Gonzaga at home. I mean, magic happens there. They had a Elite Eight run as double-digit seed in 2011 when they got to play close to home. So we know how tough it is to beat Gonzaga on their home court or in Spokane.
Oh yeah.
But I do think South Dakota State's gonna have a chance to beat Utah there, and I do think Green Bay is gonna knock out Tennessee, which now I'm starting to. I know, but now I'm
Yeah,
starting to
Autumn
regret
was
that
high
shit.
on Tennessee. So
Yeah,
you
yeah, I
feeling
know.
weary about that choice now?
I am. You know, Tennessee, we saw how good or well they played against South Carolina. Of course, we know their history. It seems weird to see Tennessee as a 6 seed. We saw it, you know, in the data that Tennessee's getting picked pretty high percentage-wise for 6 seed, whether it's the first round all the way through the championship. But Green Bay is another team that has history in winning. It's been a while since they've won, but they're a program that has won before in the tournament. I think they can do it again. And the other upset I have is I have a first 4 winner, but mine is Arizona, not Auburn. So mine's a little different. See, this is where it could change if depending on who wins that game. If Auburn takes out
Yeah.
Arizona, maybe I'll switch to Syracuse. But you know, that's the magic of the first 4 is you have these plans in your head of who's going to win those games, of why you're going to pick them the next round, and then the opposite happens. So we'll see if that changes though in the coming days.
Love it. And then in your final 4, you've got South Carolina, Iowa, UConn, and Stanford. And why are you going with Iowa? I told you my reason. You could feel the same?
Yeah, I feel the same. It kind of feels like it's time for Caitlin Clark after coming so close last year to just a wonderful story by LSU. Again, it feels weird to doubt LSU. I think that elite matchup it would be, I mean, Iowa LSU, that feels like a Final Four or title game matchup. I mean, it literally was last year, but this year it feels like it could be it again. And see that in the Final Four would just be really, really special. And LSU's path is not easy. I mean, really, the whole regional. I mean, again, when that bracket came out on Sunday, Albany 2, I think everyone was just like, wow, that is a gauntlet. Whoever gets out of that one is going to be really tested. And even like, you know, Autumn mentioned Princeton. Princeton won last year. They almost made it Sweet 16 last year. So even that's not easy for Iowa with different styles of pace there. Middle Tennessee is a tough 11 seed. Another program that has history doing well in the tournament. UNLV has 30 wins. I mean, it feels like on and on about Albany too, about all the potential potholes for the teams that we think are the favorites here. But yeah, it's talking about it for so long now. I just wanted the games to get here now and to get these first round games going.
I know.
But yeah. But yeah, I got 2 1 seeds, which we talked about. That seems to be the magic is 2 1 seeds in the Final Four, and I got a 2 and a 3 seed. But we'll see if that combo works for me. I'm not optimistic, but I'm gonna try and stay positive to see if it goes well.
Yeah, now I'm so excited to just see the games and be like, all right, I'm ready to watch my bracket. It's such a fun part of March Madness. You're just on the edge of your seat and every day, like checking your bracket and seeing, you know, what you got right and what you didn't. So it's so much fun.
Oh yeah, I can't wait. I'm sure I'll change at least 5 games between the men's and women's brackets I got, and I'll second guess myself, and then third guess myself, whatever that would mean. You know, go back to what I was before.
Always will. I think I'm going to stay with my picks, though. I'm just going to trust my gut. I'm just not going to look at it again until tomorrow when brackets lock and games start. You might want to go with that tactic.
Yeah, I'll follow your lead.
Well, Stats, anything else from you before we wrap up here?
Yeah, just a reminder for the first 4. First of all, enjoy the games. But if there's a team that you pick later because the first 4 and they lose, make sure you want to change that, or I mean, you get credit for the other team winning. So just a heads up on that. Things can get a little different there depending on those results.
All right, well, that'll wrap up day 3 of the Quest for the Perfect Bracket Show. Make sure to keep filling out those brackets as we get closer to the lock on Thursday. You can scan the code on the left to take you to our Capital One Bracket Challenge game. The deadline is approaching as games start tomorrow, but we will be back tomorrow for one more. This time it'll be tomorrow morning, 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. as we watch the clock hit 0 and brackets lock. For Wayne Stats, the whole crew, I'm Michaela Chester. Thanks again. We have another classic March Madness moment prepared to get everyone excited. So stay around for that, and we'll see you in the morning.
So the pass is going to come from Livers. He rifles it right in front of us to Abdul Rahman at midcourt. Extra pass. And it goes for the win! The three-pointer by Jordan Poole. A freshman has won it for the Wolverines. A prayer at the buzzer, and the prayer's answered. Here's how it came down.
Well executed. Tremendous pass and enough time to make the extra pass at the buzzer. Sideline, a couple bounces, and off in time, the celebration begins.
A freshman who hadn't scored in the second half until right there.
An absolute slugfest with a dramatic finish. Poole just lines it up. That's defended well by Corey Davis. He's got the high hands. Just destiny on the Wolverine side.